Hello. How's everyone doing? Great, yeah. How sleepy are you? 1 to 10? 5? 5? 6? 4? 4? Anyone wide awake? 1? 0? 0? Excited? All right. Well, I'm trying to modulate to get you the right entertainment value. So medium sleepiness is what I'm going to go for. Anyway, Lloyd, thank you for having me today. I wanted to talk about one of the lessons I've learned roughly over the past 10 years. So just to give you a little bit about my background, I've probably spent roughly the last 10 years working at consumer internet companies in hypergrowth. So hypergrowth means growing very fast. Consumer internet, I think we get. Yes, probably recognize some of these names, maybe not Wealthfront, but LinkedIn and eBay. Who doesn't know what LinkedIn and eBay is? Okay, good. Who gets too many emails from LinkedIn? Okay, I'm sorry about that. Although I now blame Atif, who I think spoke earlier, so he should be more sorry. Anyway, I wanted to talk to you about one of the major lessons I learned from this time. But first, a little bit about what hypergrowth looks like. So this is LinkedIn, 2007. That's me. I was very proud of holding the 1 in this picture. This is LinkedIn when I was leaving. I probably have to pay you to find me on this photo because it's pretty hard. This is Wealthfront where I am now. So we don't quite have the mass of humanity photo yet, but we've had pretty good growth. So this is our growth to date. Looks pretty good, right? No? Wealthfront, in case you don't know, we're essentially an online wealth manager. We're probably the easiest way to invest your money in the markets. We automated it all for you. You don't have to figure out what to buy and what investments to make and how to get a portfolio that's targeted at your risk level. You just send us the money and we take care of it. And we charge a much lower fee than you would get almost anywhere else. We have no commissions on the site. And we charge a much lower fee than you would get through a financial advisor or someone like that. So this chart is a little bit out of date. We're actually now managing about $2.6 billion in assets. So a lot of your friends are probably on Wealthfront. If you ask nicely, I can give you a discount, or don't worry about it. Anyway, so I wanted to go through, having been at these companies, one of the biggest principles that I've learned while I've done my job, and it's this one. It is easier to get an active user to do a lot more than to get an inactive user to do anything, right? And it might sound very obvious to folks in this room. Yes, of course, active user, active, does a lot more. But it's actually amazing to me how often I hear folks talking about the priority of focusing on your active users, your active customers, your active clients, versus bringing back clients, users, customers that are no longer active. What I've found in this time is almost always you are better served by focusing on folks that are already active, that have already taken some steps toward converting or doing something that you want them to do, rather than trying to get folks that are not showing that much interest in your product to do something. And so I wanted to talk through a technique that's very consistent with this principle, which is remarketing and retargeting. And this is really the goal of this talk. Who's familiar with what remarketing and retargeting is? Yeah, so a bunch of you. I'm pretty sure I'm going to show you examples of remarketing and retargeting that you haven't seen before. If I fail in that, then I'm sorry, but that's the goal here, because I think everyone is familiar with this technique. I've seen very few people use it to the extent that they can, right? So everyone's probably familiar with what remarketing is. You know, it's marketing again to someone, and it's marketing again to someone that's taken a desired action. So you can see how it connects to the principle I was referring to earlier. You have someone who's active who did something, you're trying to get them to do more, right? Probably the technique you're most familiar with are remarketing ads, right? Who's used remarketing ads before? All right, some of you. Lots of people use remarketing ads. So if you've actually browsed a page on Amazon and didn't buy that item, that's important, you may have seen an ad for that item again, somewhere else on another site, pointing you back to Amazon. Amazon doesn't do a lot of marketing on the web, right? So Amazon using remarketing, retargeting in this way speaks to the fact that it does work, right? And one of the people here is asking, does it work? It works. So if you're not doing remarketing ads, retargeting ads, that's probably one of the easiest things that you can do right now to help your product out. Seriously. I've seen it work in almost everything. So definitely, if you're not doing it, check it out. I'm going to go much deeper on what you can do with remarketing and retargeting. First of all, how do these ads work? Well, when I visit a site, some sort of tracking cookie is dropped across an ad network. When you visit another site in that ad network, now the ad from the original site you visited can show up, right? That's roughly how it works. It basically takes this kind of approach. I visit something, I didn't convert. By the way, that's important. If I converted, if I bought the camera on Amazon and you're asking me to buy it again, it's not going to work really well. I visited something I didn't convert, and so you're going to use an ad to try to get me to visit that place again. Maybe I'll convert that time. So we all know about retargeting ads, but there's retargeting going on this page. This is an eBay search for men's shoes. Anyone see how they're using the principle we just talked about? The camera. I didn't search for this camera, right? I searched in a prior session. I did look at this camera, right? But what eBay is doing here is they're saying, Elliot looked at a very expensive Sony camera, but did not buy it. Now he's searching for men's shoes, which, as you notice, are less expensive. Maybe I can get him to buy the camera. Right? That's literally what they're doing. And this is incredibly simple. They're actually just looking through stuff I viewed recently to do this kind of targeting. It's not much more complicated than that, right? But it's incredibly powerful in terms of getting people to finally convert on that item that they may have viewed a long time ago, right? So this is retargeting, no ads involved, just within your product, but basically the same principle that you just saw. If I visited something, show it to me again. Let me give you a variant of this principle, which is this one. I call it 1B. If I start a flow, right, let's say in the product, I start some sort of multi-step process. If I start a multi-step process, but don't complete all the steps, well, remind me to go back and complete it, right? I know these all sound obvious, but most folks don't do this stuff, which is why I like to repeat them. So here's an example from Wealthfront. You're signing up for Wealthfront. You're signing up for an investment portfolio, an investment account. In the middle of the sign-up process, we give you an investment plan. Very often you look at this plan, you say, oh, it's pretty interesting, but I'm not quite ready to sign up. Got to think about it. Well, if you drop out of this flow and don't sign up in the next few days, we send you an email to say, hey, you didn't sign up. We still have your plan on file, right? If you want to sign up, it's a couple of clicks from here. So this is a basic way of doing it, reminding someone who dropped out of a multi-step process that they should come back and finish it. It's another version of retargeting and remarketing, as we talked about before. This is an email example. You can certainly see yourself having some sort of reminder on the website itself, right, or putting this in an ad. We've actually tried retargeting ads that encapsulate your investment plan and send you directly back into this flow, and those work as well. So all of those are kinds of things that you can try. Let me give you another principle, and this one is very specific to how you use email. And remember, you get too many emails from LinkedIn. So when I worked there, we were very focused on not taking that too far. And so principles that can help you use email more effectively were very important to us, and should be important to anyone that doesn't want to spam all their users with email. So this is one of them. If I click on a link in an email, but whatever the email is asking me to do, I don't finish, send me the email again, right? It seems pretty straightforward. Again, it's not typically done. Let me give you an example. This is an email that Facebook sends. Some of you may have received this email. We used to send an email just like this at LinkedIn. It's trying to get you to make more connections or add more friends through a process that Facebook or LinkedIn have. And so we actually did an experiment here where we took this email, send it out, 10% of people clicked on it, and 10% of those people actually did the thing we wanted them to do. And so we split that original group in half, and half of them got this email again, and half of it didn't get this email unless they clicked on the original one and didn't ultimately convert, right? So if you're doing the math, in the second round of the emails, half the group were hit 100% of the time, and half the group, only 9% of them got an email. So the email volume was significantly reduced. Well, guess what? In the group that only got an email if they clicked on it, the number of actual conversions we got was something like 85% of what we got in the other group. So by limiting our second email just to people that have already indicated interest in taking on this action by clicking, right, by essentially retargeting them through the second email, we were able to get most of the benefit of sending the email a second time with a very, very minor increase in the number of emails we sent. A 9% increase in the number of emails we sent rather than a 100% increase. So it's a pretty powerful technique. I've literally now used it for 20 different emails, and it almost always works the same way. Some of the percentages change, obviously, but it's a pretty powerful technique. Finally, a third approach. If I took an action already that's valuable, right? If I did something that you like, I converted in some way, and I did that once, let's say I bought something on Amazon, ask me to do it again, right? Immediately. So you're probably familiar in one way of using this approach through e-commerce. You buy something, you're immediately recommended other stuff. Let me show you a very different approach to doing the same thing. That's one of my favorite examples. This is LinkedIn again. How many of you have seen something like this? A bunch of you. How many of you have been endorsed on LinkedIn? Right? Probably one of those many emails that you get. So the endorsements, getting endorsed on LinkedIn was actually one of the fastest growing products that we ever did at LinkedIn. And one of the biggest reasons was because we used this principle that we just talked about on the last slide. We took active users of LinkedIn and we had them endorse a lot. And that brought in less active users. And then they endorsed. And that brought in even less active users, and they endorsed. And eventually it kind of spread like wildfire through the system. And one of the ways we did that is by thinking, well, where are the active users and what are they doing? Right? And how can we introduce our product to them, this capability to them, when they're being active? And so this product actually uses that principle multiple times. For example, here it's catching me as I'm looking at a profile. Right? I'm already active. I'm already in the process of looking at profiles. Now is a great time to promote something for me to do, especially given how related it is to this profile. I'm endorsing Adam, who's my boss at Wealthfront. But then there's a second way of doing it, which is once I did that initial endorsement, ask me to do it again. Right? This is the strongest use of the principle I mentioned a couple of slides ago. I took an action, I took a valuable action, immediately ask me to do it many more times. Right? And in fact, this takes it even further. If I click any of these boxes and endorse that person, that box just gets replaced by another endorsement that I can make. And it just keeps going and going and going. We've had people do 300 endorsements, right, through just staying on this page and clicking the button, right? And certainly the average was very, very high. Whereas if you didn't build this kind of retargeting approach in, you'd probably get one endorsement, right, in this session, maybe a couple. So it's incredibly powerful, and this is a way that you can really increase engagement with whatever product you have. So anyway, just to summarize, I encourage all of you to come out of this, use retargeting, use remarketing. If you haven't used remarketing ads, search for that on Google. Try those ads now. It's probably the easiest thing you can do. If you've used remarketing ads and they're working for you and you like this idea, we talked to 3 deeper approaches that you can use. 1, someone visited an important part of your product or an important part of your website, they didn't convert. Try to get them back there again to see if you can convert them the next time. Someone started a multi-step process inside your product, inside your service, they didn't finish. Try to remind them to finish that process. You can do it via email, you can do it on site. If you use emails, you're worried about spamming folks too much, your email volume, you should be. Think about retargeting people with a repeat of an email that you sent based on them clicking on the original email. You'll find it to be very powerful. And then finally, and this probably doesn't apply to everyone, but if you have an action in your product and your service that folks can take multiple times, and you see someone take it once, find a way to encourage them to do it again. Make the next step for them literally taking a similar action again. Right? Make sense? All right, that's all I had today. Thank you.